Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Thursday, June 2nd, 2022. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. President Joe Biden speaks in prime time tonight, dealing with the issue of gun violence in this country. This after just a few hours ago, a mass shooting at a funeral in Wisconsin. Also, they continue to lay the dead in Uvalde. We also know the name of the victim and why they were targeted at the mass shooting yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We'll also be talking to one of the organizers of a rally being organized by young folks dealing with this whole issue of gun violence. In New York, the New York Assembly, they have passed the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. It now goes to the governor for her signature. And Florida Supreme Court refuses to intervene in the congressional redistricting fight. That means the map's Governor Ron DeSantis push through the legislature will stand, barring a federal intervention. Folks, that and more coming up. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on Go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky.
In 90 minutes, President Joe Biden is going to give a prime-time address to the nation to deal with the issue of gun violence. This comes a few hours, folks, after a mass shooting at a funeral in Wisconsin. Also a mass shooting yesterday, leaving several dead in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they continue to bury the dead in Uvalde, Texas, and of course, they continue to mourn those shot and killed in Buffalo, New York. A number of different things that have been taking place, again, across this country. And if y'all saw yesterday's show and the show the day before that, what did I say? Mr. President, step up, use the bully pulpit, lead. That's exactly what he is going to do with this prime time address. It's also time for Congress to act. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, she has said they're going to move on the issue of assault weapons. That mass shooting yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the individual who killed the doctors bought the AR-15 moments before the shooting actually took place. Earlier today, while addressing student loan debt in the country, Vice President Kamala Harris took time to address yesterday's shooting in Tulsa and this fundamental problem in America when it comes to mass shootings and gun violence.
We, of course, all of us hold the people of Tulsa in our hearts, but we also reaffirm our commitment to passing common sense gun safety laws. And I don't have to tell anybody in this room, but President Biden has taken more executive action to combat gun violence than any other president at this point in their administration. But we cannot, as an administration or those of us who are here, address this alone. No more excuses. Thoughts and prayers are important, but not enough. We need Congress.
Now, in Oklahoma, police have released the names of the 4 victims of Wednesday's hospital shooting. Pictured here are Dr. Preston Phillips, Dr. Stephanie Husson, Amanda Green, and William Love. Those 2 are receptionists. Dr. Phillips and Husson were actual doctors there. Phillips was an orthopedic surgeon. Now, several other folks were also shot and injured. Now, police say they were inside the building looking for the shooter within minutes of arriving on the scene.
Our training led us to take immediate action without hesitation. That's exactly what officers do, and that's what they did in this instance. They had the right mindset framed and went into action and did a tremendous job. Cannot emphasize enough that we train rigorously over and over and over again for not if, but when, because we have seen the violence that has taken place throughout the United States. And we would be naive not to think that that would not happen in our jurisdiction.
Tulsa police identify the shooter as Michael Lewis. They say Dr. Phillips recently performed back surgery on Lewis. Took place last month, and Lewis was not happy with the surgical outcome. Lewis died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound at the scene. Now, today, Congress was discussing this issue, and things blew up at a House committee there when the issue of guns came up. You had Republicans on the committee, some of them even, going through and showing guns during the hearing. Watch this. All right, we don't have that video. Actually, I'm going to have a video for you in just a second, just so you can understand really what took place in today's hearing and just how absolutely crazy it was. It was a House Judiciary hearing that would raise the age limit for purchasing a semi-automatic rifle from 18 to 21. Now, keep in mind, it was lowered even in Texas. Now, the bill would also make it a federal offense to manufacture or possess large-capacity magazines and would create a grant program to buy back such magazines. Now, again, we talk about these particular issues that are happening in the country. You have, as we expected, again, Republicans literally defending their position on guns and then complaining by saying, how dare Democrats say they're not trying to do anything to deal with the issue. But they're not. They're not, and this is what we're dealing with here. And just so you understand, what took place in today's hearing, which was unbelievable. You had one particular member of Congress who was showing weapons, was like literally showing the weapons during the hearing, and was complaining about the type of magazines that would be banned. Then you had Louis Gohmert of Texas, who really is one of the dumbest members of Congress, who was just so upset at what was being said in the hearing. Just listen to this nonsense, y'all.
And accuse Republicans of being complicit in murder, and that we put our right to kill over others' right to live, to infer by rhetorical supposed questions, who are you here for? We must be here for the gunman, is an outrage. How dare you?
All right. So Gohmert, he's upset and mad at that. But y'all, come on. I mean, we see exactly what's going on here. You don't have Republicans who are trying to actually do something about this very issue, because what they're most concerned about are the gun manufacturers. They're not actually trying to step up and do anything about this problem. This is one. So what President Biden is hoping to do is, again, use the bully pulpit of the presidency and being able to address the nation with this primetime speech. As we said, that is going to be taking place at 7:30, and so we're going to be carrying some of that. I'm going to show you a couple of things from the hearing. Let's go to my panel right now. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. Reese Colbert, she, of course, Black Women Views. You can also hear her with Clay Kane on Thursdays on Sirius XM radio. And we also have Dr. Larry Walker, Assistant Professor at University of Central Florida. Reese, here's what's interesting here. I mean, bottom line is Republicans want to sort of, run the clock out. That's what they're sitting here trying to do. And to listen to just the incessant whining during the House committee today as they were talking about this whole gun issue, to me was unbelievably laughable. Laughable listening to them complain, listening to them say, how this is offensive to us, saying we don't care about the lives of the children. But you don't, because you haven't done anything.
Yeah, they actually have gone beyond not doing anything. They've actually obstructed any attempt to have common sense gun reforms that a vast majority of the country supports. But Republicans know theater. They know how to cry victim. That's pretty much their entire platform, is victimizing white people, even though the white nationalists and the Republicans are actually the aggressor of diminishing democracy, of taking away rights from others, not minding their damn business, and exacerbating the violence that we have in this country. The Republicans are doing that. And so the Democrats need not shy away from doing exactly what they're doing. And I think they should be even stronger. When they want to pull out their arsenals, then or their weapons, you pull out autopsies of people who have been killed and annihilated through gun violence, through AR-15s. If they want to do political theater, then damn it, Democrats do some political theater as well. Because right now, the message is not getting through that it is Republicans that are obstructing this. When you say we have a commitment to passing gun reform, how? You got to explain to people who the hell is behind blocking it, instead of just, making these generic statements and having these generic statements about the resolve, and we're going to fight and we're going to do all this shit that you really can't fucking do as long as the Republicans are in there blocking it. And you can't appeal to the consciousness of Republicans because they have none. So I don't know what the solution is, but what I know is that you got to fight fire with fire and quit trying to play nice. The time for playing nice is long past, and the time for being civil and, well, if we work together and if we appeal to the Republicans, then maybe they'll make a deal. They ain't going to make a damn deal. So call their asses out. And every time that there's a new shooting, there's more blood on the Republicans' hands.
If people want to understand, again, some of what took place in today's hearing, this is Congresswoman Lucy McBath. Of course, remember, her son was shot and killed at a gas station in Florida by a man who was complaining that his music was too loud. That man is now in prison. He tried to use the Stand Your Ground law as an example. Here's what she said today in today's hearing.
Taking guns out of the hands of people who absolutely should not have access to them. And as we know, there were 19 officers outside of the classrooms at Robb Elementary where a gunman executed child after child after child. One for each child that was taken away from us. This false notion of good guys with guns does not work. That has been disproved over and over and over again. In Buffalo, New York, a security...
Okay, she laid that out there, Larry. Again, what you're seeing is, and we're going to, in just a second, we're going to actually show some more of what's happening there because the committee is actually still meeting. And again, you know, what you're seeing is you're seeing Democrats move on this. And I think by having the president give this primetime speech, it's going to be important to do so. Before I go to you, let's go to the hearing live. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas.
To attack persons, and the court will determine that. This is not a roundup or a lassoing of people. This is not to get in the midst of disheveled and disagreed with lovers. How much more are we going to get that doesn't take guns off the street, doesn't stop 3-year-olds from being killed because guns are not stored, or students to be killed because guns are not stored, to not educate the American public about storage, to not educate the American people about trafficking, to not educate the American people about munitions, magazines, and to not educate the American people about the idea of the gun age being too low. And so these red flag laws can save lives. And it is...
Larry, that point there, they're talking about the red flag laws, and you've got Republicans who don't even want to put that. They literally do not want to put measures in place to deal with gun safety and to save lives.
Yeah, Roland. So, I want to kind of piggyback on what Reese talked about. Democrats historically have failed to really frame this issue in a way that's really important. That kind of, it makes it easy for the American public to understand. We need to really talk about these people who are obstructionists. So the same way they demonize CRT is the same way we need to demonize folks when it comes to gun violence and their refusal to act on these bills. And so that should include President Biden using the bully pulpit, as you talked about earlier. So one of my criticisms of President Biden historically is he's very nostalgic. And he talks about his work in the Senate and even as VP working with members of the other side of the aisle. Listen, those days are over. And you have to bring the hammer down on people starting tonight. And then we see what's happening in the Judiciary Committee hearing. And we should hear the same conversation in the House and Senate. And then in terms of getting the message out at the state level in terms of Texas and New York State and some of these other jurisdictions that have been impacted by this violence. But we made it clear that it's a cultural problem. And then once again, the Republicans are being obstructionists. And we have an election coming up in November. And what are, voters prepared to do to make sure we can get some common sense gun laws? The other important thing is, Roland, is that when you look at the stats, the majority of Americans support some kind of gun reform. But Republicans for years have been consistent, at least on this issue, and say that they're not going to move on this issue. So the people need to force them to move on this issue. And for folks who are not prepared to move on the issue, then we need to vote you out and get folks in who are prepared to work with the Biden administration to get something done.
Here is an example of the theatrics that I'm talking about. This is Congressman Greg Steube sitting here doing his wonderful gun display. Watch this.
In 2021, the Glock 19 was the highest sold handgun in the United States. It comes with a 15-round magazine. That gun would be banned. Right here in front of me, I have a Sig Sauer P226. Comes with a 21-round magazine. This gun would be banned. Here's a 12-round magazine. This magazine would be banned under this current bill. It doesn't fit. because this gun was made for a 20-round, 21-round magazine. This gun would be banned under this bill. Here's a Sig Sauer 320. It takes a 20-round magazine. Here's a 12-round magazine that would be banned. It doesn't fit because it would be banned. This gun would be banned under this bill. Here's a gun I carry every single day to protect myself, my family, my wife, my home. This is a XL Sig Sauer P365. Comes with a 15-round magazine. Here's a 7-round magazine, which would be less than what would be lawful under this bill if this bill were to become law. It doesn't fit. So this gun would be banned.
I hope the gun is not loaded.
I'm at my house. I can do whatever I want with my guns.
Raise a point of order.
Is exactly what the Democrats want to do. Now let's just take the policy objectives that they're trying to accomplish and look at the municipalities that have actually...
I'm at home. I can do whatever I want with my guns. Greg, you got a big kick out of that.
I can think of a couple of things I'd love for him to do with that gun. But anyway.
Go ahead.
I got a comment. Can I comment? Because can I say something?
Go ahead.
You punk ass bitch, what you need with all them guns anyway? What you gonna get out in the shootout like the guns of the Navarone? You ain't protecting the damn thing. You sitting up there having this phallic-y, fantasy that you have with all these damn guns and these rounds. We don't give a damn about your guns. Go on ahead and ban them because people like you crazy asses don't even need the guns. Especially if that means that we have less dead children, then yes, your guns got to go, boo, period.
So here's what's hilarious here, Greg. He's complaining that, the lower capacity cartridges don't fit the gun. Well, that means that the gun manufacturers won't be able to, make 20, 21 bullet cartridges. You're gonna have to make ones that are lower. I mean, okay. You know what I find to be hilarious about this here? I play golf, and you know what they actually do? They actually change sometimes the specs of golf clubs. And they'll say, this is no longer conforming to play in golf. They've been talking about even changing, limiting drivers. It's like it exists. There are rules that limit what you can do in golf. Today, I want everybody, I want to show y'all what's laughable, okay? I just want y'all to just watch this here. So you can understand when I'm talking about, when I say how crazy these Republicans sound. When it comes to this issue of, oh my God, we're changing the rules. So Hideki Matsui is a golfer. And what happened was he teed off today and he got disqualified. And so they explain how he got disqualified in a golf match. Just watch this.
Learned prior to, right after Hideki had teed off, that he may be carrying a club that would be non-conforming. You can see the pictures you just showed on TV. There is a substance that has been applied to the face by Hideki's, one of the gentlemen that works on Hideki's clubs. And
to clear it up, that's that white substance that you see on the face.
The white paint you see on the face there, Todd. So, rule.
Okay, he got disqualified because it's a non-conforming club. And they're bitching because, oh my God, this magazine that's 12 bullets won't fit, but it's normally made for 21 rounds. Really? Right. I mean, part of the reason they're trying to limit that is so you don't have somebody who can walk in and get all 21 shots in a matter of seconds, forcing you to reload and hopefully get someone taken down. They are upset because I can't have a magazine that fires 21 bullets because now they want to limit it to 10 or 12. Damn. Oh my goodness. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Well, Roland, that commercial you showed last night, I think, said it all. That chinless bastard is not involved. He was making a commercial today. He wasn't talking to anybody, trying to convince anybody. I think Larry had it exactly right. In your book, White Fear, is coming out. You've been saying this over and over again. This is about a cultural message and a cultural war. Now, like Reese said, the Democrats need to step up. And if Joe Biden tonight flexes his executive power muscle, there's some ambiguity in the law that will allow him to cut it off at the source. You got to define who can actually sell these weapons if he's going to be about it. But here's the problem we have, and the golf metaphor is perfect. You started with the problem. I play golf. Okay, that means everybody's agreed this is the game we're going to play. But see, the white nationalists are playing a different game. When they fought to, when we saw James Craig get disqualified in Detroit to run for governor, the Republicans in Michigan, the white nationalists, tried to get him off the ballot before, because even though he showed up at the damn NRA with guns on his hips saying, I'm going to shoot these guns whenever I want, they said, you don't go far enough. This isn't about protecting your home. This isn't about self-defense. This is about resisting tyranny. That's why they show up with the Don't Tread on Me flags and the Confederate flags at these white nationalist rallies. They want the gun so they can shoot you. Now, they don't give a damn about those babies in that school. Those were Latino babies. Do you understand? They would shoot them. If you know the history of Texas, you understand they've been hunting Latinos since they ran out there and tried to make a damn country in 1836. Ask Chief Franklin, the Tulsa police chief, what he would think about gun control. Ask even Chief Craig when he was the Detroit police chief enforcing the orders, and before that in Cincinnati, and before when he was saying we need to have gun control. Gun control only exists, to Larry's point, you can have reasonable gun control laws when you have a country. There is no country, and the reasonableness for these white nationalists is power. We have to understand that. Ask Ruben Ruiz whether he is for gun control. That is the guy, the Latino brother, who was the wife of the sister Eva Morales, who lost her life in Robb Elementary. He is a damn cop, and he's a damn cop on the school district police force, and they wouldn't even let him go in there. But they don't give a damn about us. We have to understand the Second Amendment is about resisting tyranny. It's not about the plain language of the amendment. It's not about safety. It's about, I want my gun, so if I ever get to the point you've been raising, Roland, where I'm scared they're going to take my country, I can go out here and start blowing some damn heads off. That white boy was making a commercial. That one you showed last night tells us everything we need to know about what this battle is about, Roland.
And for those who missed it, here it is, what we showed last night.
Ready? Aim.
I'm Kathleen Wall, and I approve this message.
It's time to fight back.
I'm Greg Gianforte. I approve this message.
Joni's gonna unload.
I'm Joni Ernst, and I approve this message.
I'm Matt Rosendale, and I approve this message.
Pro gun.
I'm Jake Beckett, and I approve this message.
I'm going to blow away the Democrats.
I believe in individual liberty and personal responsibility.
I'm Marjorie Green.
I'm Mike Collins, and I approve this message.
I'm Hutton Rideout. Care to join me? I'm Kay Daly.
I'm Brian Kemp. I own guns.
That all depends on the caliber of our candidates.
I'm Pamela Gorman, and I approve this message.
The Second Amendment is about hunting.
I'm Dean Heller.
I'm Dan Sullivan.
I'm Catherine Templeton.
I'm Jim Lehman.
And I approve this
message.
I'm Eric Greitens.
I'm Garris O'Donnell.
We're and then turn this country back to its former glory. How to use a rifle.
Bill Ray running for Congress.
I'm Dave McCormick.
My name is J.R. Majewski.
I'm Will Brooks.
I'm Hunter Hill.
I'm Max Miller.
I'm Lindsey Graham.
Governor Janice
I'm Doug
McKeon.
Robinson.
And I approve this message.
And I absolutely approve this message.
I'm Dr. Oz.
I'm Kat Kamak.
I'm Ron Gould.
I approve this message.
For God's sake, we have to have the courage to stand up to the industry.
That ain't going to happen.
That's why the NRA endorsed me.
I'm Joe Manchin, and I approve this message.
Reese, 2004, when Howard Dean said Republican Party uses God, gays, and guns to appeal to their voters, he wasn't lying.
Right. And Obama said it too, and they ripped his head off. That was some sick shit. And I think, Dr. Carr has been saying it for years, and I'm starting to be on Dr. Carr's side about, we may not really have a country, and it might not be salvageable at this point, because there's a real sickness. It's not mental health It's just the sickness of white supremacy and the white fear that, like Dr. Carr and you are been talking about, that this is okay. You know, it's not just Black people, because we're not talking about the gun violence that's happening in our communities every day. We're talking about mass shootings. We're talking about what we would consider aberrations. And even that's not enough. You know, it might be Latino kids in Uvalde, but you had white kids in Sandy Hook, and that was not enough. That's how demented and deranged this country is. I don't know if anything can move the needle except for us no longer existing under the way that we understand the United States to be. And I don't know what that even looks like, but that's fucking disturbing and sick. And unfortunately, you have Republicans that are going to be turned on by that. And then you have Democrats that are like, well, what are you doing on these 18 other things to get my ass out and vote? Because that's not enough for me to make sure that Republicans never see the inside of a state house or a legislature or an executive house again. So what do? We just keep on talking about the next mass shooting, the next police shooting, the next act of violence, and nothing gets done.
And if you want to understand how Republicans don't really care, here you have parents burying their dead in Uvalde, Texas. And yesterday, this is what one of the two U.S. senators from Texas posted on his Twitter feed.
So is 7-2 a good hand?
Oh, boy. Helmy's limped in for the 3, and Ted made it 13-5 from the small blind. So Alexandra, let's go in the big. It's back over to Phil.
So he's talking.
So Senator Ted Cruz participated, Larry, in a poker tournament with one of the biggest poker players in the country. He actually put that on his Twitter feed yesterday. Now, the video he posted before that, last year I played in a charity poker game on Poker After Dark, mentioned the people. It was awesome. Catch the first episode here. That's not what you maybe want to be posting on your social media account. On your personal social media account, in the midst of your constituents burying their children in caskets made after their favorite cartoon characters.
Roland, I think the bottom line is, who's holding people accountable? So when you reelect, members of the House or Senate who have these same kind of commercials advocating, listen, the imagery from these commercials connected to movies and the language they use is very clear. This is the new Jim Crow. So we got to be clear about that. So that means armed groups ensure Black folks don't vote. And if you try to make certain changes, then the response is violence. That's a clear message. And I think it's really important. I know we've had a lot of conversations on this show about where we are as a country. Dr. Carr's talked about it, Reese's talked about that. But this is it. This is the time now. Because if we don't get some strong leadership and force folks to vote the way they should be voting, then we're going to continue to see a downward spiral. It is it's almost as if you had a calculator and these mass shootings you're just calculating. It's not weekly, it's daily now. We were in multiple mass shootings per day. It is not going to get better until we have gun laws to address this issue. Moving from 18 to 21, banning some of the assault rifles. Listen, I want to also say something else, Roland. I grew up in a family where my dad's a hunter, so we went hunting. Right now, my father is in support of common sense gun laws because this doesn't make any sense to constantly see children, innocent victims, be killed because if someone could go out that day of, hour before, buy a gun, enter an institution, and start firing and killing people who were just minding their business. And we got to do something about it now.
Greg, this is the other U.S. Senator from Texas. So Joe Pagliarulo is a conservative radio talk show host out of San Antonio. He sent this tweet. I'm told John Cornyn is open to making gun laws more restrictive. I get emails to have the senator back on and to, quote, go at him on this. John is from Texas. I've interviewed him hundreds of times. Until I hear him say he wants to restrict my second rights, I'll refrain from judging. Cornyn tweets, not going to happen. Who is Senator Cornyn? The person that Senator Mitch McConnell has said is in charge of negotiating a gun package. Right there. He's saying
I love it.
ain't gonna happen. But you got Senator Susan Collins. Oh, you know, Miss. I think Donald Trump learned his lesson. That same Senator Collins. Let me see what. Let's see here. This is what he tweeted right here. New key gun restrictions won't get into any deal. Background checks plan to be narrow, and raising age for AR-15 seems unlikely. There's still optimism about incremental deal.
Yeah.
Then, but he did. Where's the? Let's see here. Let's see here. I'm looking for the one where he talked about Susan Collins, because I want to give y'all a good laugh on that one, because I thought that one really was funny. I think she. Let's see here. Where is it? Because I got a big kick out of it, because she said something to the effect of, "Oh, here it is. This is Susan Collins right here. Quote, we're making rapid progress toward a common sense package that could garner support from both Republicans and Democrats."
Well, that's her job. She's doing her job. She's doing her job, bro. I mean, she says her name is Susan Collins, which leads me to skepticism whether or not that's her name. Everything that comes out of Susan Collins' mouth can't be trusted. But of course, the whites of Maine sent her back to the federal legislature using the white minority rule clause of the federal constitution, although they probably didn't know it at the time. It's called the Electoral College. So that's why it's insurmountable. That's why you have a white nationalist like Joe Manchin as the last shooter in that commercial. The D and the R are much less relevant here. I mean, and Larry, you framed it beautifully, brother. It seems to me, you know, we are being pushed to the brink of the fracture of this little federal polity. And Reese, I don't know what comes next. I'm not hoping or wishing that. I'm just saying, as a student of history, we are now back in the 19th century. When you said the new Jim Crow, you're absolutely right, Doc. I mean, look, in 1856, May 1856, Preston Brooks, who was a congressman from South Carolina, walked onto the floor of the United States Senate and beat Charles Sumner, Senator Sumner, in the head with a silver-tipped cane. Took him 3 years to recover. Now, Sumner, once he recovered, was one of the leaders of the Civil War amendments, 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment. My point is this: Ted Cruz is going to take an ass whooping, and so is John Cornyn. See, you have to understand what Malcolm X meant when he gave the speech, the ballot or the bullet. He wasn't hoping for a violent revolution in this country. What he was saying is, if you take people's right to express themselves at the ballot box away, they're going to start getting the strap. Ted Cruz already can't eat outside. This chinless bastard going to show up one day and somebody going to beat his ass. Now, he could pray they do it with their hands. But since none of these white nationalists want anybody to take their guns away, people going to start blowing heads off, and it ain't going to be drive-by shootings in Chicago. It's going to be, is this the MF that won't protect my babies? No problem. You ain't got to worry about him again. Now, let's have an election for his replacement. My point is this: I'm not wishing that on anybody, but anyone who knows the history of this country understands where this is going. Violence, once released, if it's not checked, it's going to become the accepted, not only accepted, but the desired tool of political expression. These white boys are playing with fire, because last I checked, they're a bunch of punks. So if you want to go, you would be better off getting all these folks who ain't going to vote lined up to overwhelm them at the ballot box, because that other option, they ready for that. And that's the last thing you want to see, Chief, because all y'all gonna piss your pants. John Cornyn, Ted Cruz, chinless Josh Hawley, chinless Tom Cotton. You ain't built like that. Do you know the history? Abraham Lincoln didn't free us. What happened was Martin Delany went to the White House and said, no problem. You give us some guns, we'll end this war. I'll murder everything moving, including you. And Abraham Lincoln was like, I love Frederick Douglass, but Martin Delany is about that life. And once we got those guns, we ended the Civil War. Y'all don't know your history. F around and find out.
Now, folks.
But Dr. Cart, can I just do you really, like, 2022? Are people about it? Because I'm George Zimmerman still walking. I'm not wishing nothing on nobody, but George Zimmerman's still walking around. A lot of these people who done killed, black people, they all still walking around. I'm just trying to figure out who's about to life. I'm not saying I'm not trying to find them and get them all gassed up, but I feel like we're sleepwalking into the demise of what we have currently. And people are just shoulder shrugging. So
people are shoulder shrugging because you don't have enough politicians on the Democratic side who did what Beto O'Rourke did.
I agree with you on that.
See, the fundamental problem that we're facing right now is that, again, how Democrats have always operated. They actually are believing that there are a set of governing rules.
There it is.
That we all are in the same boat, that we're going to be respectful towards one another, and that, you know what, that common sense is really going to take hold. So therefore, you know what, let me just sort of just respect people. See, this is what I keep saying. President Joe Biden is still operating like he's in the Senate in 1990.
That's right.
And in fact, he's still operating like he's in the Senate, as opposed to, bruh, you're the president. I mean, you're literally the president. This is how. And see, and again, this was the news conference when Beto O'Rourke, when all those Republicans were sitting up there, and we now know they were lying when they were praising law enforcement. And you now notice they ain't saying how amazing law enforcement was. This has to happen more by Democrats. This.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sit down.
You're out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this stuff.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue.
Yeah, you want me to come in?
Let's see, I want y'all to see. Y'all didn't see the white woman in the black hat?
Yep.
Who walked up and pointed out? Yep. See, people don't want to talk about that happening. She doesn't walk up unless Beto walks up.
That's right.
And see, this is the heat that he brought outside.
Yes.
He should not have been able to buy an AR-15 right there. Do you want a solution? Stop selling AR-15s in the state of Texas. You want a solution? Have universal background checks. We don't have them. You want a solution? Red flag laws or extreme risk protection orders, which stop a shooting before it happens. You want a solution? Safe storage laws. Those are 4 solutions that have been brought up by the people of Texas. Each one of those has broad bipartisan support right now. We could get that done if we had a governor who cared more about the people of Texas than he does his own political career or his fealty to the NRA. And if you need any proof of that, check the schedule for the NRA's convention this Friday right here in the state of Texas. 5 of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history right in this state on his watch. What does he do about it? He goes to the NRA convention to brag about how easy he has made it to purchase guns in this state and to carry them publicly, without a background check, without any training or vetting whatsoever. It is absolutely wrong. In fact, it is insane. The governor talks about mental health. It is insane that we allow an 18-year-old to go in and buy an AR-15. What the hell did we think he was going to do with that? This one is on us.
That was how he responded. And what happened yesterday in Tulsa? Man is upset about his surgery, goes into a store, buys an Do y'all... Tuesday, I went to Walgreens and bought a 24-pack of Zyrtec D. I wanted 2.
Come on now. Come on.
I was told, nope. Excuse me? They last 12 hours. So 24-pack is going to last me 12 days. I don't want to have to come back here, so just give me 2 damn packs. Nope. You're prohibited. Federal law.
Come on.
Yeah, I was at Walgreens.
Come on.
Now, I'm like, All right, must be CVS. Y'all, no lie. I drove to CVS. I was at Walgreens. I drove to CVS. Less than 10 minutes later. Less than 10 minutes later, walked into the CVS, walked to the counter, said, I would like a 12-pack of, a 24-pack of Zyrtec D. Woman said, give me your license. Gave my license. She was like, sorry, I can't sell it to you. I was already in the system.
How about that?
Wow.
Less than 10 minutes.
Come
Why?
on now.
Because a federal law was passed to keep people from buying Sudafed and drugs like this out of fear of making or mixing with fentanyl. A law was passed. So let me say this again. I could not purchase 2 24 packs of Zyrtec D for allergies. But I can walk into a gun store and buy immediately an AR-15 and buy a shitload of bullets.
That's right.
I can buy multiple magazines of bullets, but I could not get 2 24-pack of Zyrtec D for allergies.
Well, Roland, I mean, what you're raising is very important for all the obvious reasons. We're talking about a system that is not broken. The people who put this system together couldn't have anticipated what is happening now, but they put in place a fail-safe to make sure that in order to move forward, there has to be a national consensus. It's called the federal legislature. You couldn't do that because a federal law was passed. There was a consensus. But on this issue, this is an issue where the idea of a national consensus comes in direct conflict with the idea of why this settler state was founded. So Reese, you're right. I mean, I don't know what would happen, but I know this much. We don't have to go back to 1856. We can go back just 30 years ago to when them white boys got off for beating Rodney King after Latasha Hollins had been killed and all that momentum had brought up. Remember, the Crips and the Bloods called a truce in the streets of LA. In fact, a year or two later, when Dr. Dre released The Chronic, he had a cut on there called The Day the Ends Took Over. And you heard them brothers in the street, if you're not down with the Africans in the United States, if you're not down with that, they tied blue and red rags together. They said, we have a beef with the group that Tupac called the biggest gang of N-words in the city, the police. LAPD with Batarams have been coming in through South. Remember Damian Football Williams, who pulled Brian McDinney out of that truck at the corner of Florida and Normandy where Roland stood a few months ago, hit him in the head with the brick. Remember Ice Cube and Dr. Dre in Natural Born Killers? He said, so F. Charlie Manson, pull him out of his truck, hit him with a brick, and I'm dancing. And the day they arrested Damian Football Williams for doing something he shouldn't have done, the chief of LAPD, Daryl Gates, said, you're going down, Football. And in handcuffs, Damian Williams looked back at Chief Gates and said, you're going down, Chief Gates. My point is this. We're not talking about a politically conscious group of black people with guns in this country in 2022. We're talking about people who then, when confronted with a country who will not protect their children, say, we ain't got nothing else to lose. Let's stop shooting each other for the weekend, and we're going to go down to Racine. Because guess what? It's 30 miles south of Milwaukee, and it's just across Illinois. And so since y'all won't put Kyle Rittenhouse in jail for shooting people, and he shot white people, the next time they will be I'll end with this. The white dude in Canada, Stephen Marsh, wrote a book called The Coming Civil War on the United States. He's in Canada where they have incredible gun laws, right? Looking at the United States and said, it's going to be a trigger event. It might be a natural disaster. It may be a flood or hurricane in Florida since you've stripped everybody of the capacity to intervene. But whatever it is, when it pushes this country over the brink, the fracture is not going to be made possible by people who are politically conscious. It's going to be made possible by people who say, I don't have anything else to lose. And frankly, I'm with you, sis. I don't have a solution for that. I'm not hoping for it. I'm just saying this is where we're headed. And those white boys not backing up. because they think somehow they can survive that, and they can't.
The only way this changes. Last night in Dallas, Beto O'Rourke, that was a town hall, 3 standing ovations last night. The only way this changes is when these white folks in America get off their asses and say, I don't care what you say about taxes. I don't care what you say about abortion. I don't care what you say about gay people. I don't care what you say about black people. I don't care what you say about immigrants. I don't care what. I am not going to vote for you because of your stance on guns. Mm-hmm. But this town hall right here, you've got to show it. More of this has to happen. More of this has to happen. And this can't be 500. It has to be 500,000. Mm-hmm. It has to be 5 million. They have to be penalized at the ballot box. And we've got to also, I got to stop having these black people who want to keep trying me on social media, keep it on Beto, who want to keep trying me, okay? Or, y'all, they just giving y'all Juneteenth to make you happy. No, fool, I'm from Texas. And Juneteenth was always used as a freedom opportunity for black people, where we registered people to vote, where we had symposiums, where we had town halls. It wasn't just barbecue and concerts.
That's right, brother.
It was a continuing effort for freedom. And so what Beto is doing here and what Biden is going to have to do tonight, he is going to have to say the line has been drawn. Mm-hmm. He is going to have to say, and he's going to have the guts.
That's right.
To do exactly what I just did, talking about how in the hell can I only buy 1 pack? And matter of fact, let me tell y'all, I don't even know what the law says. Can I only buy 1 pack once a week or once a day? What he should do is sit here and say, and what the White House should do tonight is do this here. Play the Uvalde stinger. And what he then should say is Buffalo.
Mm.
He then should say, Sandy Hook.
The cards came from everywhere. And now families of Sandy Hook are ready to answer you.
Our hearts are broken.
Our spirit is not.
We will be remembered not as the town filled with grief and victims,
but as the place where real change began.
20 of our children, 6 of our educators.
Gone.
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 We know the price of inaction.
We will honor the lives lost.
This is the time.
It's time to turn the conversations into actions.
We need you now. Will you stand with us for change?
It's time.
Will you promise?
Will you promise?
Will you promise?
Make your voice heard. Go to sandyhookpromise.org now.
And then you roll Emmanuel 9, and then you roll Columbine, and then you roll Santa Fe, and you force the country to see it. I know there are people out here who are saying, oh, the families, they should do a Mamie Till Mobley and open the caskets. No, I'm not going to ask any parent to do that.
No.
I'm not going to ask a parent. Now, if a parent chooses to do that, that's their decision. I'm not going to ask a parent to do that.
No.
But you got to put it in the face of these people at every turn. This is what lax gun laws have done in this country. And they must hammer it every single day. And Biden should say, I'm putting it all on the line. And you got to be willing to say, if y'all don't want to re-elect me, fine. And if I go down on this one, fine.
Yeah.
But they have got to learn that as long as you keep playing footsie and with this incremental, no, we're not going to do background checks. We're not going to get rid of the AR-15s. We're not going to reduce the size of the magazines. What the hell are you going to do then?
Nothing.
Oh, let's fortify the door. Oh, sure. That's progress. Let's fortify the door. Okay. Gotcha. No. They have got to be willing to put this on the line. Final
Period.
Comment before we go to break.
I just want to say, to be clear, I'm very aware who the enemy of progress is. It's the Republicans. But my message for the Democrats is if you're going to lose this battle, if you're going to lose again because of the obstruction and the depravity of Republicans, then goddamn it, lose loudly. Lose with some fucking anger. Quit going out like cowards and losing quietly and losing, oh, well, I guess we're not going to have a deal this time. Oh, well, I guess we're going to go home. Lose loud as fuck and let everybody know who the enemy is. And maybe you might not get slaughtered at the ballot booth in November. And maybe people will wake the hell up and understand what's at stake and who the real enemy is. Because right now it's looking like Democrats are fucking useless. And I don't believe that they are. But when you go out like a bitch and a coward every time, people don't know that you're not actually useless. And that if they put enough of you in there, we can get some damn progress.
Indeed. Going to a break. We come back. We'll talk the California report released with regards to reparations.
Okay.
Will the state actually pony up the resources? We'll talk about that. Also, we'll talk to a young person who's involved with a mass rally that's being planned to deal with the issue of gun violence, and that and more. And of course, again, President Joe Biden, his national address speaking to the issue of gun violence in this country. We will carry it live right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. Folks, we'll be right back.
We welcome you
you to the launch of the Mass Poor People's Low-Wage Assembly and Moral March on Washington, D.C., June 18, 2022.
We are a new, unsettling force, and we are powerful. A new, unsettling force, and we are here.
We're rising up to demonstrate the compelling power that we, poor and low-income people, have to reconstruct society from the bottom up.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
Because we know that there is no scarcity in this land. The only scarcity is the moral will to do what's right.
Hold on, just a little while longer.
We are those with sub-minimum wage jobs who can't afford sky-high rent.
People with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group.
It's crazy to me that in 2021, it's still legal for workplaces to pay a sub-minimum wage to people with disabilities.
There are still so much trial and tribulations that we go through as Indigenous people. We can't get a decent wage to sustain ourselves, nor can we get adequate housing.
Veterans across this nation say enough is enough. We can't pat essential workers on the back on one day and then cut their health care the next day.
Health is a political choice.
What more do I need to do to prove that my voice is just as valuable as anyone else's?
There are still forces in denial that would try to slow walk our transition to a clean economy and a just future for us all.
We have an immoral system run by immoral people.
But together we walk, and we walk and we fight.
It's time for a change. Reconstruyamos esta gran nación.
See, we are people of resilience as we fight these interlocking injustices together.
When we work together, mobilize together, and rise together, we become a voice for the voiceless, and we become an agent of change in a time where great change is needed.
We need the third Reconstruction to ensure that deaf people, people with disabilities, and all people can have the right to live and to thrive.
We know what they are doing, but the question is, what are we going to do? Reconstruction begins when we change our mentality and say it's time for you to get your foot off of my neck.
Justice is coming soon.
You know, he brought his own sound, so when you have an artist that creates his own sound, like Earth, Wind & Fire, Stevie, you know. They come in, the Beatles, they create their own sound. He kept reinventing himself. He wasn't afraid to change instrumentations or not use drums or not use bass or use the Lynn machine or use real drums or use, you know, pots and pans. It didn't matter. It's just like he wasn't afraid to, the sound was different every time he did an album, completely different, you know. And the things that he wrote about, it was things that he felt he needed to speak about. So a lot of honesty, you know, whether he would admit to it or not, there was a lot of honesty and a lot of things that were real to him. When he gave, you know. I think for me, he is my favorite, my #1 favorite guitar player in the world. He played with, I mean, and especially I loved times me playing drums with him, he and I playing together. When I played drums, it was a whole nother thing. And I just think that he reached people in a way as an artist that he reached you because he was, again, honest in a way that he said it a million times, but he wasn't trying to write the next Purple Rain. That was already what it was.
Right.
I can write that. That was that one time thing,
right.
But it's never going to happen again. So why would I write that again? Then it's not special anymore.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
Hey, I'm Arnaz J.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin
unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
All right, folks, in California, we have talked about the task force that was created there that dealt with the issue of reparations. Now that task force has released a 500-page report that details the systemic racism that African Americans have endured in California, even though when California was admitted to the Union, it was a free state. This interim report lays out all the different things that have actually taken place. The question now is, with this report, what comes next? Joining us right now is Reverend Amos Brown out of San Francisco, who is a member of the task force. Also, State Senator Stephen Bradford, who also joins us, who's a member of the task force as well. Glad to have both of you here. I will start with you, Pastor Brown, because you're an alpha. You know,
at the beginning.
Well, now, Bradford, you knew where I was going to go. Now, come on now. You knew. Let me go ahead and start with Pastor Brown, and that is, how important is this report, and what is the next step?
It's important because we did diligence to document the harm that was done to black folk. And we have, as Joe Friday said in Dragnet, the facts, ma'am, the facts. Now it remains for the nation and the world to see what the so-called progressive liberal state will do to pay its debt to black folk. I'm very proud of our task force, very logical, sensible, common sense, and factual way that we approach the task.
All right, Senator, so the report calls for reparations and repairs in a variety of areas: education, housing, and the justice system. Some of the recommendations include updating language in the state's constitution, removing racial bias and discriminatory practices in standardized testing, compensating people deprived of profits for their work, investing in and creating free healthcare programs, and apologizing for acts of political disenfranchisement. Now, you got some people who believe cut the check, cut the check. You hear them say cut the check. They want direct payments, but your task force is not unanimous, if you will, on exactly what this repair looks like, correct?
That's correct. And that's what the next year is about, putting meat on the bones to shape up what reparations look like. It could be in the form of cash payment. It could be in the way in which you just described, ongoing education at our CSU and our UC system, ongoing health care, first-time home buyer assistance, low-interest business loans, you name it. So that's what the next year is going to be. The first year was explaining the harm, and a lot of times people say, well, California wasn't a slave state, but you can clearly see by this report, we were complicit and really involved in the perpetuation of slavery and all those evils that came along with it. So we can't stand here and say we, don't have any responsibility to reparations.
So, Pastor Brown, and so you've had the task force thus far, and so what is the next thing? What's the next step for this task force?
The next is to establish a plan for paying us back and making sure that we get this political body politic moving to support our recommendations. That's all that's necessary. It's time for us to act. We've done the study. We've had enough studies about the evils of the slave trade, about the evils of enslavement and segregation. Now is the time for us to push with all of our might to get the same kind of a response that the Jews got in terms of reparations, the Japanese, and even Western Europe got when, after that terrible war, we had a Marshall Plan that represented payback, rebuilding.
Now, Senator Bradford, look, you're a lawmaker, and you know what it's like having to get things through the legislature and for the governor to sign. How daunting of a task is this going to be?
It's going to be Herculean. It's going to be, as we describe, a heavy lift. It's not going to be easy, no doubt about it. Even from my progressive friends who always want to say, hey, we got to need change, we need to right the wrongs. This is going to be a real profile and courage for the California legislature on both sides of the House to come up and cast a vote on this final product, what we develop in the next year. And I think it's going to be a fair plan. It's going to, I hope, includes some forms of cash payment. I hope it also includes the fact that we can afford this. And for folks to continue to say California cannot afford to pay reparations, be it in cash, I say that's just a bunch of foo-foo dust. Even if we took 0.5% of our annual state budget and set that aside as it relates to cash payments or funding other programs, the money will be there, and we would miss 0.5% of, as you clearly see, almost a $300 billion budget.
So, Pastor, what is going to be? I mean, look, what's going to be the lobbying effort? I mean, you've got to literally, get the votes. And anybody who understands politics, it comes down to counting the votes. So obviously it's got to go through committee. It's got to get out of committee. Then it's got to go through one chamber. Got to go through the second chamber before it even gets to the governor. And so what is that lobbying effort going to look like? Who's sort of putting that plan of action together?
That's the next step. We have that on our radar. So have no fear. We know how to count. As Willie Brown would always say, if you're going to be successful in this political process, you must know how to count and know how to get the vote. So we're very much aware of that practical reality when it comes to getting a legislative body to deliver on ideas and programs.
Senator Bradford, look, again, as someone who's had to have to do this, what type of external campaign is going to have to be put together? I mean, it's going to have to be a massive effort to get the House members and the Senate members to be on board with this.
It's going to take a public relations campaign. We're going to be working with the public relations agency as we move forward with just the work that we're doing on the task force. That's what we want, the public engagement, and keep people informed. And we appreciate a program such as this to let folks know what's next, what's coming down the road. Yes, it's going to require all of us, especially the Black Caucus, which we stand in unison on coming up with a program to work with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle to come to a realization that this is needed, whether it's, again, in some form of cash payment, some kind of ongoing education program for individuals who have been descendants and suffered from not only slavery, but the remnants of slavery here in California. So it's going to require us to work in all the ethnic caucuses all coming together as well, being supportive of this. But we have a year to pull it all together, but we're going to be working at it.
All right, then.
And in San Francisco, we have support from the Jewish community and members even in the Asian community.
Here in terms of ethnic caucus.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, I certainly appreciate you joining us. We'll see what the next step is and when it comes to what you present to the legislature.
Thank you.
Right.
Got a year to do it. Thank you. Thank you, Roland, for this.
Thanks a bunch. Bring my panel here. Greg, is interesting. I had a guy hit me today, and he was like, where you on reparations? I said, man, I done told y'all. I said, I have no confidence that white legislatures are going to actually stand for it. I said, but what you going to do? See, and that's the thing right there. Greg, it trips me out for the people who yell, holler, and scream, cut the check. But then when you hit them, what are you doing? There's never a response. There's rarely a response. And the guy was like, the guy said, well, you said a few years ago that you believe reparations is a pipe dream. I said, I do not have faith that white politicians are going to fork over billions of dollars. I said, excuse me if I don't have faith that they gonna do that. Now, this is where what it looks like comes in. Because if you talk about cash payments, we already see they suing, hell, when it comes to the black farmers. The black farmers, they still ain't been able to tap that money because of that lawsuit. They're gonna tie that sucker up in courts for a very long time. And so you're gonna have to deal with that reality. And for the people who see, and this is the one that probably kills me the most, Greg, Reese, and Larry, all these stuck on stupid people. Democrats ain't shit. They ain't shit. Then I go, who you think you're gonna be dealing with to try to get it?
Right.
Like, literally. I don't know about y'all. I ain't heard one Republican say, I'm down reparations. So it's sort of laughable that folk gonna try to tear down one side, which is the only pathway you got. I mean, let's be real clear. Democrats control the California House, Senate, and the governor's mansion, which means you're gonna have to convince them to make this done. And Greg, every Democrat in California don't represent a black district. Black people only make up 6% of LA.
Yep.
But these other folk that you swear they experts on politics. Go ahead, your thoughts.
No, I'll just keep this quick. I'm very torn by this report. I haven't read all the 500 pages, but I've read most of them. It only came out yesterday after all, so I only had a chance. But I'm very torn about this. There's very little new in the report. We've seen these kind of reports before. Our frat brother, Paul Robeson, in 1951, we charged genocide. The forum there was the United Nations. That's a whole nother conversation. But I was concerned, first of all, that the entire document was drafted and written and edited by lawyers and law clerks and members of the AG office in California, that the supporting contributors were all law clerks or lawyers in the AG's department, that the expert commentators, the expert contributors rather, there were four or six of them, Sandy Darity and Kristen Mullen, his partner, were at the heart of this, which is why the deeply flawed logic of the structure of the report was just alarming to me. This is intellectual warfare. You might only get one shot at this. What we see is the litany of abuses. They did a decent job at that, although reading through the footnotes, I was very concerned about who they didn't include. This is when you put your best foot forward, and the cherry picking, and I don't blame the staff because they don't know black scholarship. So I know why you picked certain people and left everybody else out. I was concerned, if I'll end with this, the chapter on economic kind of harm. Yeah, Sandy Darity's footnotes were all through that. I see what he's doing. You're trying to model this up so you can get at H.R. 40, the federal legislation. And here's where the concern comes in. And here's where, if you're going to get this through, it's going to be an issue. Everything in just about all of those chapters applies to anybody black. So at the end of the executive summary, section 15, they proposed setting up something called the California African American Freedmen Affairs Agency to help people trace their lineage. Lineage is going to be the hill that fractures this whole thing. How are you going to exclude people who came from the Caribbean, who suffered the afterlives of enslavement, that are shot through your entire document? How are you going to exclude people in all of those categories who suffer because they're black? Now, I get the class thing. I get that there are differences. I get it better than you do. Trust me on that. But the point is this. You cannot make a political coalition when you start with who you're going to leave out of it. And it's going to be a whole bunch of white people show up with better records than you do saying, give me my reparations in whatever form it is. And I think that is the hill that I'm waiting to see what comes up next in this next part of the report. But Roland, I should end on a positive note. I said I was going to blast. Let me just say this. This is a step forward. I'm not interested in fighting black people. What I'm saying is we got to be smarter than that. We come from a tradition of much better intellectual work than this. So I'm saying, yes, we got to fight. But damn it, they passed a damn ballot initiative in California that doesn't allow you to use race in a remedy. So you just going to accept that? I'm with you, Reese. You got to get out and pass a new ballot initiative to take that off, because they hiding behind interpretation of the law to try to exclude black people. And that's something that I'm torn. The best I can do now is just be quiet.
Well, Greg, you had this one person, you got people in the chat session going, descendants of black United States slaves only, Dr. Carr.
At me, baby. At me. At me. Anytime you want to have this conversation, trust me, brother, I feel your pain. But on the best day of your life, you can't win this argument with your open enemy, because guess what? As John Henry Clark said, a New York City taxi driver or one in California don't make no difference between however your acronym, DAIS, FBA, ADOS, and wherever black people came from somewhere else, because guess what? That taxi driver is a Pan-Africanist, because y'all all N-words. You don't understand how this works. But if you want to have the conversation, in love, brother. Anytime, any place.
and Larry, to the point in which Greg has laid out, in that, and I've heard other historians lay out, when you say descendants of slaves, you're going to have some white folks in line.
No question.
Listen, we have these conversations about, people, black folks, look at their lineage and they found out they got some cousins from across the tracks, or some cousins in a different state. Brother Carr is right. Listen, there are folks, and we got to talk about the role in terms of, black folks brought here through the transatlantic slave trade, and then Africans being enslaved, in terms of the records, right? So we don't know where we come in terms. Most of us don't know where we came from when it comes to the continent. We don't know what language we spoke. We don't know much about our religion and our ancestors were in Africa, right? And particularly Western Africa. We don't know any of that. But there are a lot of folks in this country who are white, like Dr. Carr alluded to. They've got records that go back generations.
Come on.
Let's talk about Strom Thurmond. So, and,
That's right.
So listen, and having a black daughter. So this issue of race and lineage in this country is it's very tricky. Let me also add something, Roman, I think is really important here. Is the biggest obstacle we're going to, in terms of this committee is going to face is anti-blackness. Let me repeat that again. Anti-blackness is the biggest obstacle to whatever cash payouts, whatever they decide to do with the banking industry or college tuition, et cetera. And as a former policy staffer, my biggest challenges with Democrats who are liberal. I already understood where Republicans who are conservative understood where they were coming from. My often frequent challenges in terms of getting policy issues moved out of committee to the House, Florida House, was with my fellow Democrats who work for progressive members. So once again, I repeat, the biggest challenge is going to be anti-blackness in terms of really addressing the issues that people of African descent have encountered in this country for generations.
And Reese, what I have laid out to people is look at the data. All the people who are always yelling, the data. I keep hearing all the people, the data. Last election, let me say it again, the last election, 71 to 73% of the entire electorate were white. All y'all people who are watching me right now, who are listening, let me remind y'all, every Democrat does not come from a district elected by black people. Matter of fact, some of y'all ain't even studied the CBC districts. A number of them, they don't have 50, 60% black in their districts. So when you talk about how do you get someone to support something, they're gonna have to go to their constituents and say, this is why I voted for it. And you sending a tweet saying cut the check, that ain't gonna be enough to convince somebody to vote for it. Reese, go ahead.
Let me just start, number one, with y'all, a lot of folks, I won't say y'all, folks don't have the smoke for the people who are actually in opposition, 100% opposition, united opposition to it. I remember a lot of times when this whole tangibles 2020, cut the check, no tangibles, no vote, no reparations, no vote. I noticed that it was Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, who's actually sponsor of the HR 40 Commission, that was getting dragged because she's not ADOS, apparently. Okay, fine. But I was looking for the tweets against Mitch McConnell. I was looking for the tweets against any Republicans, never found them. The reality is that if you look at the HR 40 Commission, the bill in the U.S. Congress and the U.S. House of Representatives, there are 196 sponsors of it, the largest number of sponsors ever. And the CBC only has 55 of those votes. So there are a lot of white people in the U.S. Congress that actually do support HR 40 Commission enough to put their name on the bill. But who I see that gets attacked over reparations is not the Republicans, the 200-something number of Republicans, or even the Democrats that haven't signed on to the HR 40 Commission. It's the CBC all the time. And so I think we have a problem with making enemies or in our minds, making enemies out of people who are actually on our sides and fighting a battle that you don't even have to fight with the people on your side and not reserving any of the smoke for the people on the other side. So this is going to be a battle. It's going to be a policy battle. It's going to be a public relations battle. And it's not going to be won by being obnoxious assholes on Twitter towards people who actually are on your side. That's not how it's going to be won. And I'm with Dr. Carr. I'm really curious to see what happens when the first Black person that's like, woohoo, reparations, realizes that they ain't got the paperwork or that they're somehow excluded from this. Then I think we're going to see a whole different battle. Because right now, if you've ever seen the ADOS versus non-ADOS battles online, it's already kind of nasty. So imagine when we get some legislation in there, ain't nobody gonna get no damn reparations. But I do applaud what's happened in California. Ice Cube got a lot of credit for it, even though it was actually at the time Representative Shirley Weber, who's now Secretary of State of California. You know, these battles are long, hard fought battles, and you have to play the long game, and you have to be strategic and go after the people that are against you and prop up and make sure the people that are on your side have that much more ammo behind them instead of you tearing them down.
And all I want to do is just remind people real quick, it's real simple. If you sitting your ass at home and saying I ain't voting, you're guaranteeing this will never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say it again. So if you're in North Carolina and you're like, damn that, you're guaranteeing Judd, the Republican, is going to win. We know damn well he ain't down with it. If Georgia, you're going to guarantee Herschel Walker wins. Florida, you're going to guarantee Rubio wins. Pennsylvania, you're going to guarantee Oz or the other dude wins over Fetterman. I'm just trying to walk y'all through this. Y'all, you cannot demand from politicians to cut the check, but then you don't vote, because then you're guaranteeing your check ain't gonna get cut.
Roland, I know we got to move on, but if you allow me just a second to not only emphasize that, but demonstrate in real world terms, in terms of this particular study formation in California, how that played out.
And just for the folks who don't know, Greg, you testified before this task force, before the report was released. Go ahead.
I did. Thank you. Actually, thank you, because I tell you who will be excellent to bring in this, because, again, this is just the first volume. Now they got to come up with the specific recommendations, which is the one I want to see. Again, we do have the litany of abuses. Now I want to see how they're going to work this. You know who also testified, who actually was one of the economists who were brought in, was Bill Spriggs. He and I talked about it during graduation a few weeks ago. If you can get Bill, he can walk through what this does and doesn't do in terms of the actual payout. So, and that, when I did testify, they asked me, do you support lineage over race? I said, within the context that Professor Erman Cheriminski, who is the dean of Cal Berkeley Law, who had testified the day before, I said, within that limited context, I would support lineage. Why? Of course, I'm a member of the National Coalition of Blacks of Reparations in America, and Cobra, and have been for decades. I know all the reparations folk, and all reparations, Ray Jenkins, going back to James Kynes before he got out of Congress, and Sheila Jackson Lee took the baton. So, of course, I'm a reparations. But the point is this. What you're raising, Roland, is really the issue. And Reese, you set it up. Political struggle is not a one-shot, one election cycle, one appeal, one court case war. Now, I don't know, Roland, I missed it. If you played it, I missed it because I was watching the shows and I catch up. But that political tape, the tape that Politico got, where the white boys in the RNC are talking about how they already got the judges laid up to steal the election if they can get to the courts. Right. My point is this: there's a reason that. And as you say, Reese, the Democrats trying to play fair. So in New York, the court threw out their maps, and now they got a race against each other in them congressional districts. In Florida, as you talk about, Roland, and you covered this, of course, the court in Florida said, no, we're going to let these racially gerrymandered seats stand in Florida. You saw the same thing in Alabama, in Ohio, and North Carolina. They're fighting. Why are they fighting? For this reason. California had a ballot initiative that makes it illegal for you to use race as a criteria for any type of public service in California. Okay, then what does that mean? That means when you set up a reparations commission, you can't say race. That's why they chose lineage. That's what Dean Chemerinsky was trying to explain to him, and that's what I was trying to explain to him. But here's where it comes down to the politics. Just like they set up a referendum to get rid of race, if you organize enough people, you can put it back on the ballot and get rid of it. But that's going to require something, what's it called? Oh, yeah, voting. Now, on the national level, what does it look like federally? The reason you can't use race is because the Supreme Court of the United States made law interpreting the Civil War amendments to exclude race. That was the affirmative action turn. They're going to get rid of affirmative action now, but the rationale for affirmative action is diversity. That's not written in the 14th Amendment. That is how that's how the courts interpret it. Just like you being able to have a gun ain't in the Second Amendment. All this is judge-made law. But guess what? Judges aren't elected. Judges are appointed by legislators who are elected and nominated by a president who's elected. If you think
one second. I got to actually pause you right there. Here's President Joe Biden about to speak from the White House with his primetime address.
Those hallowed grounds, we saw rows and rows of crosses among the rows of headstones with other emblems of belief, honoring those who paid the ultimate price on battlefields around the world. The day before, we visited Uvalde, Texas. In front of Robb Elementary School, we stood before 21 crosses for 19 third and fourth graders and 2 teachers. On each cross, a name, and nearby, a photo of each victim that Jill and I reached out to touch. Innocent victims murdered in the classroom that have been turned into a killing field. Standing there in that small town, like so many other communities across America, I couldn't help but think there are too many other schools, too many other everyday places that have become killing fields, battlefields, here in America. We stood at such a place just 12 days before, across from a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, memorializing 10 fellow Americans, a spouse, a parent, a grandparent, a sibling, gone forever. At both places, we spent hours with hundreds of family members who were broken, whose lives will never be the same. They had one message for all of us: do something. Just do something. For God's sake, do something. After Columbine, after Sandy Hook, after Charleston, after Orlando, after Las Vegas, after Parkland, nothing has been done. This time that can't be true. This time we must actually do something. The issue we face is one of conscience and common sense. For so many of you at home, I want to be very clear. This is not about taking away anyone's guns. It's not about vilifying gun owners. In fact, we believe we should be treating responsible gun owners as an example of how every gun owner should behave. I respect the culture and the tradition and the concerns of lawful gun owners. At the same time, the Second Amendment, like all other rights, is not absolute. It was Justice Scalia who wrote, and I quote, "Like most rights, the rights granted by the Second Amendment are not unlimited. Not unlimited. It never has been. There have always been limitations on what weapons you can own in America. For example, machine guns have been federally regulated for nearly 90 years, and this is still a free country. This isn't about taking away anyone's rights. It's about protecting children. It's about protecting families. It's about protecting whole communities. It's about protecting our freedom to go to school, to a grocery store, to a church, without being shot and killed. According to new data just released by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. The #1 killer. More than car accidents, more than cancer. Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined. Think about that. More kids than on-duty cops killed by guns. More kids than soldiers killed by guns. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough? I know that we can't prevent every tragedy, but here's what I believe we have to do. Here's what the overwhelming majority of American people believe we must do. Here's what the families in Buffalo and Uvalde in Texas told us we must do. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Strengthen background checks, enact safe storage law and red flag laws. Repeal the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability. Address the mental health crisis, deepening the trauma of gun violence and as a consequence of that violence. These are rational, common sense measures. Here's what it all means. It all means this. We should reinstate the assault weapons ban and high-capacity magazines that we passed in 1994 with bipartisan support in Congress and the support of law enforcement. 9 categories of semi-automatic weapons were included in that ban, like AK-47s and AR-15s. And in the 10 years it was law, mass shootings went down. But after Republicans let the law expire in 2004, and those weapons were allowed to be sold again, mass shootings tripled. Those are the facts. A few years ago, the family of the inventor of the AR-15 said he would have been horrified to know that its design was being used to slaughter children and other innocent lives instead of being used as a military weapon on the battlefields, as it was designed. That's what it was designed for. Enough. Enough. We should limit how many rounds a weapon can hold. Why, in God's name, should an ordinary citizen be able to purchase an assault weapon that holds 30-round magazines that let mass shooters fire hundreds of bullets in a matter of minutes? The damage was so devastating in Uvalde, parents had to do DNA swabs to identify the remains of their children. 9- and 10-year-old children. Enough. We should expand background checks to keep guns out of the hands of felons, fugitives, and those under restraining orders. Stronger background checks are something that the vast majority of Americans, including the majority of gun owners, agree on. I also believe we should have safe storage laws and personal liability for not locking up your gun. The shooter in Sandy Hook came from a home full of guns. They were too easy to access. That's how he got the weapons. The weapon he used to kill his mother and then murdered 26 people, including 20 first graders. If you own a weapon, you have a responsibility to secure it. Every responsible gun owner agrees to make sure no one else can have access to it, to lock it up, to have trigger locks. And if you don't, and something bad happens, you should be held responsible. We should also have national red flag laws so that a parent, a teacher, a counselor can flag for a court that a child, a student, a patient is exhibiting violent tendencies, threatening classmates, or experiencing suicidal thoughts, it makes them a danger to themselves or to others. 19 states in the District of Columbia have red flag laws. The Delaware law is named after my son, Attorney General Beau Biden. Fort Hood, Texas, 2009, 13 dead and more than 30 injured. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, 2018, 17 dead, 17 injured. In both places, countless others suffering with invisible wounds. Red flag laws could have stopped both these shooters. In Uvalde, the shooter was 17 when he asked his sister to buy him an assault weapon. Knowing he'd be denied because he was too young to purchase one himself, she refused. But as soon as he turned 18, he purchased 2 assault weapons for himself. Because in Texas, you can be 18 years old and buy an assault weapon, even though you can't buy a pistol in Texas until you're 21. If we can't ban assault weapons, as we should, we must at least raise the age to be able to purchase one to 21. Look, I know some folks will say 18-year-olds can serve in the military and fire those weapons. But that's with training and supervision by the best trained experts in the world. Don't tell me raising the age won't make a difference. Enough. We should repeal the liability shield that often protects gun manufacturers from being sued for the death and destruction caused by their weapons. They're the only industry in this country that has that kind of immunity. Imagine if the tobacco industry had been immune from being sued, where we'd be today. The gun industry's special protections are outrageous. It must end. And let there be no mistake about the psychological trauma that gun violence leaves behind. Imagine being that little girl, that brave little girl in Uvalde, who smeared blood off her murdered friend's body on her own face to lie still among the corpses in her classroom and pretend she was dead in order to stay alive. Imagine what it'd be like for her to walk down the hallway of any school again. Imagine what it's like for children who experience this kind of trauma every day in school, in the streets, in communities all across America. Imagine what it's like for so many parents to hug their children goodbye in the morning, not sure whether they'll come back home. Unfortunately, too many people don't have to imagine that at all. Even before the pandemic, young people were already hurting. There's a serious youth mental health crisis in this country. We have to do something about it. That's why mental health is the heart of my unity agenda that I laid out in the State of the Union address this year. We must provide more school counselors, more school nurses, more mental health services for students and for teachers, more people volunteering as mentors to help young people succeed, more privacy protection and resources to keep kids safe from the harms of social media. This unity agenda won't fully heal the wounded souls, but it will help. It matters. I just told you what I'd do. The question now is, what will the Congress do? The House of Representatives has already passed key measures we need. Expanding background checks to cover nearly all gun sales, including at gun shows and online sales. Getting rid of the loophole that allows a gun sale to go through after 3 business days, even if the background check has not been completed. And the House is planning even more action next week. Safe storage requirements, the banning of high-capacity magazines, raising the age to buy an assault weapon to 21, federal red flag law, codifying my ban on ghost guns that don't have serial numbers and can't be traced, and tougher laws to prevent gun trafficking and straw purchases. This time, we have to take the time to do something. And this time, it's time for the Senate to do something. But as we know, in order to get anything done in the Senate, we need a minimum of 10 Republican senators. I support the bipartisan efforts that include a small group of Democrats and Republican senators trying to find a way. But my God, the fact that the majority of the Senate Republicans don't want any of these proposals even to be debated or come up for a vote, I find unconscionable. We can't fail the American people again. Since Uvalde, just over a week ago, there have been 20 other mass shootings in America, each with 4 or more people killed or injured, including yesterday at a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A shooter deliberately targeted a surgeon using an assault weapon he bought just a few hours before his rampage that left a surgeon, another doctor, a receptionist, and a patient dead and many more injured. That doesn't count the carnage we see every single day. It doesn't make the headlines. I've been in this fight for a long time. I know how hard it is, but I'll never give up. And if Congress fails, I believe this time a majority of the American people won't give up either. I believe the majority of you will act to turn your outrage into making this issue central to your vote. Enough, enough, enough. Over the next 17 days, the families in Uvalde will continue burying their dead. It will take that long in part because it's a town where everyone knows everyone. And day by day, they will honor each one they lost. Jill and I met with the owner and staff of the funeral home as being strong to take care of their own. And the people of Uvalde mourn as they do over the next 17 days. What will we be doing as a nation? Jill and I met with the sister of the teacher who was murdered and whose husband died of a heart attack 2 days later, leaving behind 4 beautiful orphaned children, all now orphaned. The sister asked us, what could she say? What could she tell her nieces and nephews? It's the most heartbreaking moments that I can remember. All I could think to say was, I told her to hold them tight. Hold them tight. After visiting the school, we attended Mass at Sacred Heart Catholic Church with Father Eddie. In the pews, families and friends held each other tightly. As Archbishop Gustavo spoke, he asked the children in attendance to come up on the altar and sit in the altar with him as he spoke. There wasn't enough room, so Mom and her young son sat next to Jill and me in the first pew. And as we left the church, a grandmother who had just lost her granddaughter passed me a handwritten letter. It read, quote, erase the invisible line that is dividing our nation. Come up with a solution and fix what's broken and make the changes that are necessary to prevent this from happening again. End of quote. My fellow Americans, enough. Enough. It's time for each of us to do our part. It's time to act for the children we've lost, for the children we can save, for the nation we love. Let's hear the call and the cry. Let's meet the moment. Let us finally do something. God bless the families who are hurting. God bless you all. From a hymn based on the 91st Psalm sung in my church, may he raise you up on eagle's wings and bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun and hold you in the palm of his hand. That's my prayer for all of you. God bless you.
Folks, as you see the president walking out, there are 56 candles that are on the floor there representing the 50 states and 6 territories that are affected by gun violence. We go back to our panel. Also joining us is Tatiana Washington, who's an organizer for March for Our Lives. She joins us from Milwaukee. The March for Our Lives was birthed out of the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida on February 14, 2018. Tatiana, just to put this into context, this year, 3,044 members of the class of 2021 died as a result of gun violence. That's according to the lost class. What did you hear from what the president just said? What did you like? What did you dislike? Was there more that you wanted to hear? Just your assessment of his primetime address to the nation regarding gun violence.
Definitely, and thank you so much for having me. I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of young people, especially us at March for Our Lives, we started in 2018, and some of us were graduating high school, and now we're getting ready to graduate college or graduated college. And I think a lot of us, we're tired of just hearing words, and we really need action. I definitely agree with President Biden. We do need to have a vote on background checks. 90% of Americans support universal background checks, and we need to see who is with us and who isn't with us so we can start and mobilize against them and really vote them out.
Reese, I'm looking at comments in our chat room, and people are saying, I'm bored by this. This is not impressive. I want to hear more. He should do more. He should sign an executive order. But people have to understand, first of all, people have to understand you can't sign an executive order for everything. That's first. He's been consistently saying that Congress has to actually pass laws that affect this. That's also what I think there's so many people are not understanding the reality of civics and the different branches of the federal government.
Definitely.
But we know that people don't understand the way that laws are made or obstructed. In the case of Republicans, what they've been doing since Obama and Mitch McConnell pledged to make Obama a one-term president, and has been bragging even this week about blocking Merrick Garland from the Supreme Court. I think the problem is people really don't know the severity of the obstruction that's capable, or that Republicans are able to get away with because of arcane Senate rules like the filibuster, and there are not the votes there to overturn it. And so the challenge is still, how do you do what you say needs to be done? And I don't think that President Biden really introduced anything new there. I appreciated that he did specifically call out the Republicans, and he gave, it's unconscionable. And he gave a little, oh gosh, that's terrible. But I did not hear anything rousing to get people out into the streets, to move the needle. This was not a needle moving speech. I listened to his speech that he gave shortly after Uvalde, which was not a primetime speech. And it was much of the same content in this speech tonight. So it was a Biden speech. It was a POTUS speech. I mean, it's not going to move hardly anybody. And people that hate you criticizing President Biden or criticizing the Democrats are going to complain about people who did not find much inspiring about that. But it's not the people who already like President Biden. It's not the people that are already voting Democrats that you have to worry about mobilizing and shaking out of their complacency or apathy or their belief that nothing can be done. It's those who are really just very casually viewing things, those who do not have a deep understanding of civics, that you got to find a way to wake the hell up and see what's on the ballot and what's at stake here. And I don't think that did that.
Like I got someone here, Antonio Dotson, who says, Roland, he's the president, he could do more. Okay, Antonio, like what? And Tatiana, I think that is the reality that we're living in. There are we do not live in a dictatorship. There are limitations in terms of what the president can do. I do believe that the importance of this speech is to be a part of the national consciousness, to help rally and move people to act on this. And I think that's still, I think, what is important here. The question now becomes, how does this White House continue it? Again, getting people to write, to call, the march that y'all are doing on June 11th, the Poor People's Campaign and meeting on June 18th. You have to move people to act. If they are flooding the United States Senate with phone calls and emails, if people are coming to the nation's capital, that's a part of it. But if there has to be sort of that groundswell of support and pressure, they have to feel it to get them to move.
Definitely, for sure. And, I think really, a vote on universal background checks is the floor, and it's the bare minimum that they can do. Again, this is something that 90% of Americans support. And we know that really to end this epidemic, we're going to have to reimagine our world, right? This is not just about guns itself. It's about addressing those root causes of poverty and armed supremacy and mental health and so much more. And we really need something bold and transformative and something that centers community and embraces people in, and really that's centered around love and care for people. And I will also say that something that March for Our Lives has been pushing for is asking President Biden to appoint someone that's a national director of gun violence prevention. This is something that he can do today without Congress approval. But again, we do need Congress to act, and we need people involved, and really hoping that folks do join us on June 11th. And whether it's in DC or in Milwaukee or in Chicago or anywhere else in the country, we're marching all over, and we really need folks on the ground to really say that enough is enough.
Larry, as I sit here again, I'm looking at how people are responding, and I have to go ahead and say it. To all of y'all in the chat rooms who are saying, oh, I wasn't inspired, I was bored, he should do more, please tell me how many times you've called your United States Senator. Please tell me when you've emailed them or written them. I mean, Tatiana, they're out there doing the work. Shannon Watts and Mom's Man, they're doing the work. But part of this issue here, Larry, is that there are too many people who are like, oh, something has to be done, but they won't even pick the phone up or even say, I'm going to call my U.S. Senator every day at 10 a.m. Every day I'm going to call, and I'm going to get 10 or 20 people to do the exact same thing. Public pressure is the only thing that is going to get them to act.
Roland, that's a really important point. So I'm going to give you some insight from a staffer's perspective. When we got emails or phone calls consistently from voters from my boss's district about an issue, it was my responsibility to bring it to his attention and ensure he got reelected. So that pressure does work. If you keep calling, keep emailing, and when you have these town halls, et cetera, whether it's virtual or in person, we just saw Senator Grassley just the last couple of days, people asking him about this issue relating to guns and violence in America. When you begin to challenge public officials on these issues, you make them nervous, and particularly if they're up for re-election. The other thing, Roland, is some of the things you talk about in the chat you talked about civics. It is really important people understand the difference between executive, legislative, and judicial body, right? So when people need to understand those distinctions. But it is really important, once again, this is the point you highlighted, that we pressure these folks to let them know that we want something done now. We're not waiting. And if you don't do it, we're going to hold you responsible at the ballot box. And people, listen, if they want to, get in these chats and make all these points, you got to go out and register people to vote. That's the other thing I need President Biden to make that connection to these issues and use the bully pulpit to say what the additional things that we need to do in supporting DNC and other various nonprofit organizations, progressive organizations, grassroots organizations, to register people to vote, to make sure people don't want to get anything done now, then come November that they won't be in office anymore.
Tatiana.
But Roland, can I point out that Biden didn't even ask people to call their senators? He could have easily said there's bipartisan negotiations happening right now. If you think that Uvalde is too much, if you think Buffalo is too much, if you think Tulsa and every other day we have a mass shooting is too much, then call your senators. Get out there and march. He has not called for that himself, which is not something, so you can't just say, well, we have to do that. That's what the bully pulpit is for. We understand, most of us understand, or many of us understand, that he is limited into what it can pass through the legislature, but you're not even calling for pressure on the legislature. And I'm not crediting Trump by any means, but one thing about Trump was going to call your ass out. McCain is voting against this, or Mitch McConnell, or whoever the hell the situation, whoever he had a grievance with. And I'm not saying you have to go that far, but my point is that he has the audience in the bully pulpit to at least tell people to call your senators. And he's not doing that.
And that right there, Tatiana, is, again, for me, when I talk about if you're going to use the bully pulpit, you have to direct people. People out here going, okay, I want to do something, but they literally don't know where to go. He has to actually do that. The White House has to do that. There should be a war room set up in the White House right now when it says that we are going to make this issue our top issue, and we want to see it done before the November election. And again, Tatiana, that to me is, I think, yes, what he has to say and keep saying on a constant basis.
Definitely. And I would also say to the folks that are saying they don't feel inspired, what is it going to take? You know, so many of us in this movement have been personally impacted by gun violence. In 2017, I lost my aunt in a murder-suicide at the hands of her husband. That's really why I got involved. And you hear these stories from so many people all around the country. I honestly don't know that many people that haven't been directly impacted by gun violence. And I want to make sure that we stop this and making sure that we're not all collectively living with this trauma. There was once a young girl who was about 12 years old came up to me after I did a panel and told me, it's not not if I get shot, it's when. And we really have a generation of traumatized kids and traumatized adults, and enough is honestly just enough. And we need everyone to come forward and really fight to end this epidemic.
And that right there, I'm so glad Tatiana said that, Greg. When we played those videos of Buffalo and Uvalde, I mean, I saw how it touched you emotionally. And so when somebody says, I need to be inspired, that's the whole point of you seeing the videos. Right. The video should piss you off. Thinking about the 9 dead at Mother Emanuel, that should, I mean, that's the piece there. And so I agree with Reese. President Biden should have done that. But if you're sitting here watching this show right now and saying, oh my God, I need Biden to inspire me, what the hell were you doing an hour ago?
Right.
We showed you the faces of 19 kids and two adults dead in Uvalde, and 10 dead in Buffalo, 9 dead again at Mother Emanuel. The kids dead at Santa Fe. The folks dead, 26 dead Sulphur Springs, 23 dead at the Walmart in El Paso. Hell, 86-year-old black grandmother at her grandson's graduation on the campus of Xavier University 2 days ago, dead because a shooting broke out. 4 dead Tulsa yesterday. 5 shot at a funeral today in Wisconsin. So what the hell you mean you need to be inspired?
Right.
That's because they show Will Smith slapping Chris Rock and everybody talking about that, or Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. You're dead. You are dead. That's all. You're dead. If you don't like it, I really don't care. Roland, the first time we met and had our little back and forth where I realized you were a Twitter assassin. It was you were moderating a conversation after showing the 12 Years a Slave. I've only watched that movie one time because the historical inaccuracies bother me, this kind of thing. But the one thing that motivated you that night with such passion, among other things, was the brutality that Steve McQueen showed in that film. It's too much for a lot of people. A lot of young people say, I don't watch no slavery films. Why? It's not because you are dead inside. It's because when you see our people get whipped, that's why Roots had the impact it had in the 70s. That wasn't Kunta Kinte. That was John Amos. You understand? That was Maya Angelou and Cicely Tyson. You knew those people. Even O.J. Simpson in there. I mean, you saw people get whipped who you knew. Now, why do I say all that? And Sister Tatiana, I'm going to tell you, sis, we never met personally, but I love you and I love all of you young people who are doing this because you have a faith I don't. I have no love for this country because I know too much history. You see, there was a time when you were bought and sold, and your womb was used as an ATM. And the violence that caused that persists. This criminal enterprise was founded on this kind of violence. And it's not going to go away until we end it. Now, so I guess when you said that, Tatiana, I saw Joe Biden walk out there, and I don't know whether the Democratic National Convention is going to be in New York, Chicago, Atlanta. Those are the 3 major cities. But wherever it is, it could be years from now when you are sitting in your office or you're a federal judge or you overseas doing something, you may look back and say, that was the moment that the Democrats lost the midterm elections and lost the election of 2024. Because in that moment, Joe Biden could have at least appointed a czar, as you say. It has his power. He has the power to do that. What he also could have done, he talked about, what did he talk about? He talked about renewing the 94 to 2004 assault weapons ban. And Dr. Walker, Larry, you may have been on the Hill or around there, so you could probably walk us through what happened. Of course, they let it lapse. But then 4 years later, Obama was elected, and that's when the real shift took place because they said, oh, my God, look, a Negro. We must never let that happen. That's when the United States went over the edge, and the White Nationalist Party dropped all pretenses. He said you should lock up your guns and have the trigger locks. Okay. Then he said you should have the red flag laws. Okay. And 19 states have them, and the one in Delaware is named for my son. Okay. And then he started talking about mental health and counselors and nurses and okay, that's right, mentors. Or where's he going with this? And then he said, and that's why Congress must act. The House has passed legislation. And in the Senate, and I said, here he goes. He's about to blow up the filibuster. He said, we need 60 votes. You motherfucker. See, President Biden, sir, I can't call you brother because we don't have the same lineage. I know y'all like that 8 eyes people, but the point is this. You believe in something that doesn't exist.
Right.
Malcolm X said you're speaking a language they don't understand. Do you understand today that a white nationalist congressman from Missouri, from the 7th District, Missouri, around Springfield, named Billy Long, said he wants to get reelected and he's going to push to get Kamala Harris out as vice president, put Trump in, and then push to get you to resign, sir? It's absurd, but he also said today that the gun violence, he said that's because there's no respect for life in America. And guess what he blamed it on? He said a woman's right to choose to terminate a pregnancy. Abortion is the reason for gun violence. These white boys are playing for the whole ball of wax, and you still talking as if this is a nation. You're the president of the damn United States of America. You may have lost the election tonight, but only thing that might save you is the people in the United States of America, including apparently too many people in this chat, have the memory of a fruit fly. So they're not going to remember tonight that when faced with a moment when you could have decisively said, we're going to need to blow up the filibuster. I'm talking to you, Joe Manchin, and I'm talking to you, Kristen Sinema, tonight. Enough is enough. Instead of saying that, or instead of saying, as you just heard Tatiana say, and these young people have been organizing since before Sandy Hook, since before Marjorie Stoneman, but they in the streets. And you could have said tonight, I'm appointing a czar, and they're going to coordinate all federal policy, and I'm going to do everything in my power. We've already teed up, and tomorrow you're going to see me sign these orders. In other words, you could have done that, but instead of that, you went through all the things you want. Then you held up those babies that you talked about and those elders you talked about, and you said it takes 60 votes. No, it don't take 60. Larry, tell them that's a Senate rule. No. You swung and you missed tonight, Joe. There are things you could have done. This young lady right here told you right now one of the things you could have done, and that would have cost you nothing. I'm sorry, Roland. I'm done. Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you.
Tatiana, I got to speak to this. There are folks who are not very interesting. Because the previous conversation we had, one guy was like, see, there you go. We talking about reparations, and Roland, you switched to voting for Democrats. And then I had someone said, on the gun issue, you caping for Democrats. When the U.S. House passed a bill a week ago dealing with domestic terrorism in the aftermath of Buffalo, one Republican voted for the bill. It passed because Democrats voted for it. When the House passed a bill to stop price gouging of gas, no Republicans voted for it. When the House passed a bill to spend $28 or $30 million to deal with baby formula, no Republicans voted for the bill. Republicans in this session voted against the John Lewis Act. Republicans in this session voted against the For the People Act. Senate Republicans blocked the bill dealing with terrorism. when Donald Trump went to the White House, one of the first bills the Republican House repealed was an Obama-era rule that dealt with ending discrimination in auto lending. So for all of y'all people who keep saying, oh, who he's caping for, oh, he keeps moving to talking about voting for Democrats, please tell me who the hell then else out there is going to vote for it. If the entire Republican conference, except one, voted against the domestic terrorism bill after 10 black folks were gunned down in Buffalo, well then who the hell would I say we should be pressuring to vote? If nothing can move right now because of the filibuster,
Yes, sir.
because of Sinema and Manchin,
That's right.
and if that means that Tim Ryan gets elected in Ohio, and Sherrod Beasley in North Carolina, and Fetterman in Pennsylvania, and Demings in Florida, and Warnock gets reelected in Georgia, and Kelly gets reelected in Arizona, and Democrats hold the seats in Nevada and New Hampshire, and if Mandela Barnes wins the Democratic nomination in Wisconsin and then beats Senator Ron Johnson in November. And if folks mobilize black people and poor white people in Kentucky and Charles Booker takes out Rand Paul, if we register 100,000 black people in Louisiana and puts Gary Chambers in position to beat Senator John Kennedy, then we're talking about 55, 45, 57, 43, and then Sinema and Manchin that votes are negated. So tell me who the hell else there is to support.
Teach.
You cannot sit here on Twitter and on YouTube and Facebook and go, all you talk about is vote for Democrats, when the opposition don't give a damn about your black ass. But you want to sit your Simple Simon ass at home. Oh, who you caping for? But you say you want gun laws. But you say you want the Voting Rights Act. But you say you want gas prices lowered. But you say you want all type of things. Please, by all means, tell me what magical, mystical, political party there exists out there where there are a group of votes that is going to get done other than what is sitting before us. Please, by all means, tell me where they are so I can invite them on the show. Because the reality, Tatiana, if there's only one party where we can be applying pressure to pass something, and they control the House right now and control the Senate, that's what we should be doing. Because here's what we do know. If the Republicans who are in the minority right now get control of the House and the Senate after November, there is a 100% guarantee that we have no shot at getting any of this. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're really pushing and hoping, for folks to come out with us in March on June 11th. If you're interested and not in the DC area, text March to 954-954, and really hoping that Senator Schumer will call for a vote on background checks. We need to see who the folks that are with us and who aren't with us so we can start mobilizing against them. And that's something that we know that we can do, right? Our communities have a disproportionate or vote in higher record turnout, so do young people, and we know that we can mobilize against these folks, and we need to see who's with us on this. Again, this is something that is so simple, it's so basic. It's getting a vote on universal background check. It's something that needs to be done, and it's literally the floor for anything for gun violence prevention. It is so easy. It's one thing that can definitely save lives, but it's not the only thing that we can do, and it's something that just needs to be done.
That's right. Again, put the graphic up, please, folks. The march is taking place on June 11th here in the nation's capital. You can text March to 954-954. It is the March for Our Lives. They marched in 2018. They are going to be out there again, and I'm going to show y'all something. I showed this last night. Again, for all of the simple Simons out there who don't quite understand what I'm talking about when we talk about voting. There was a piece in one of the North Carolina newspapers, and they were talking about turnout. And for all of y'all who are sitting here right now, who are listening to me, and you're bitching and moaning in the chat, and oh my God, there you go, you talking about, oh my God, you talking about the Democrats, and oh my God, how we gotta voting for them. Again, it's abundantly clear who supports gun control or gun safety and those who don't. But I just showed y'all the graphic when they had the March for Our Lives 4 years ago. Y'all saw that, right?
Yes.
This is from the newspaper article that Reverend Barber was quoted in. I want you to pull it up. I want y'all to see this here. I showed this yesterday. In 2008 in North Carolina, the black voter turnout was 73%. I need y'all to listen to what I'm saying. 73%. It exceeded the white turnout of 71%. In 2020, the black turnout dropped by 3 points. The white turnout increased by 8 points.
Yes, sir.
That's how Tom Tillis was able to beat Cal Cunningham. That's how Sherry Beasley lost the state Supreme Court justice, the Chief Justice position, because of that. She lost by 400 votes. Listen to what I just told y'all. Sherry Beasley, who's not running for the United States Senate, was running. She was the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court. She lost by 400 votes. Y'all, the 400 votes is in the 3% of fewer black people who voted in 2020 compared to 2008. But I want y'all to see something, because I told y'all where Tatiana and all of them were marching in 2018. That was a midterm election. Look at right there. In the last midterm election in 2018, just 48% black turnout. That right there, y'all, is 25% less than when black people turned out for Obama in 2008. But I want you to look at the white number. Only 56% of white people turned out in the 2018 midterm compared to 71%. That, y'all, is 15 points less. Guess what? Had black folks in the 2018 midterms matched their turnout in the 2008 election, black voters alone would have determined every statewide position in the state of North Carolina.
That's right.
So for all y'all sitting at home who like, oh, there you go, y'all, it's in the numbers. So for you get mad that I keep flipping it to voting, you cannot talk policy in America if you don't combine that with voting. Tatiana said the president can appoint someone, a national person dealing with guns. But what he laid out, all of those policy prescriptions, he said Congress has to pass those. So how you get mad because I'm bringing up the vote when that's how you get the policy? So if my fear, pull it back up, my fear is that we gonna see black turnout, 48–50% of the vote, far less than a motivated white turnout, and y'all gonna be sitting here the day after the election, hemming and hawing, and then come January 2023, when the new Congress is sworn in, then y'all gonna be in the same damn chat room. In the exact same chat room, talking about, oh, look at Jim Jordan, committee chair. Look at Matt Gaetz, committee chair. Oh, look at this Republican. And now all of a sudden, they're over this. And then you're going to be complaining about what didn't get passed. And then you're going to be saying, well, it's a doggone shame. And I'm going to sit here and say, did your ass vote? Did your cousin vote? Did your family vote? Your church member, your fraternity brother? ADOS, did you vote? FBA, because let me just go ahead and say this right now. ADOS, FBA, B1. Y'all ain't getting a damn thing if Republicans control the House and the Senate. You can go ahead and write that in stone.
Stone.
Because there's not one Republican co-sponsor of H.R. 40. Not one. So if you want to get added to, hey man, you always talking about, oh, go over here. Numbers don't lie. But see, Tatiana is with us like the president said that little girl who smeared blood on her body is with us. So if you are that desperate because you need somebody to excite you, pull the numbers back up. Because see, y'all, 2008, when 73% of black people voted, in 2008, when 73% of black people voted, in 2008, when 73% of black people voted, in 2008, no, I need the other one, y'all. In 2008, guess what? They were excited.
Right.
They were excited.
Right.
Oh, Obama. Black people were so excited in North Carolina, they literally outvoted white people. And he won the state by 14,100 votes. 14,100. Some cities had 90% black turnout.
Right. Right.
What I'm saying is, you can't get excited about hearing the story of a young girl smearing blood on her body and laying still so she don't get shot. But have the same damn enthusiasm you did for Obama. If you need to be inspired to vote, write the damn names down, the 9 black people killed in Charleston. If you need to be inspired, write down the 10 names of the black people killed in Buffalo. Since you need to be inspired. What I'm saying to y'all, you Simple Simons, you caping for the Democrats. If that was another party that was out there that supported these issues and they were in office, I'll be like, let's go. Boo. There ain't. See, I got to work with what I got. And what I'm saying right now,
they don't want to hear that.
It is an absolute fact that that march that Tatiana and those students are going to be on, put the graphic back up, at that march, ain't no Republicans going to be retweeting the graphic. Ain't no Republicans putting this on their Twitter page. Ain't no Republicans going to be encouraging their constituents to go to this march on June 11th. But y'all go ahead and keep playing your games. And then you say, I don't know who you always caping for. These young people, black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Buddhist, atheist, gay, straight, east side, west coast, flyover states, south, don't matter. They are going to be coming together all across the country. So if you actually need to be inspired, watch them on June 11th and hear their stories.
Yes, sir.
That's how we change. Tatiana, we appreciate it. Good luck. And we certainly will be there covering the event on June 11th. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Final comments. Larry, you first.
Roland, these mass shootings are going to continue. We have to put folks' feet to the fire. We need true leadership from the executive branch. That includes President Biden, as we talked about, naming names. When you start calling people out by name, Reese talked about Donald Trump, and Lord knows he was a lot of crazy nonsense, but he would hold people accountable, and we have to start doing that. And like I said, calling people out by name.
Reese.
Yeah, I just want to, point out that in addition to apathy and confusion, we have chaos and we have disinformation targeting Black people specifically, and especially to try to gin up discontent and disillusionment, particularly with Democrats. That's why you have an organized chaos agent of, trolls, army of trolls who will make comments that try to dissuade you from advocating for the party that actually is in support of the policies that we want to see push us forward. It's the reason why people know about this COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act that they refer to as the Asian bill, but they don't say anything about the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. It's why they call for an anti-Black hate crimes bill, even though the Black hate crimes bill passed in 1968, which is called the Civil Rights Act, and the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crime Act in 2009, I believe it was. So, it's the reason why people can name drop that K-pop was at the White House the other day. It was Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. God, they can't go to the White House, I guess. But you didn't hear anybody outside of, Roland and certain Black media outlets talking about Gianna Floyd being at the White House for the signing of the executive order and on her father's, shortly after her father's death anniversary, and the police activity. And so our police executive order. And so what we have permeating through our community is chaos and confusion sown by disinformation and misinformation. And so if you are feeling disillusioned, it's probably intentional. And that's what we have to work on. We have to work on combating these narratives that are meant to suppress our enthusiasm or even suppress just our basic knowledge of the facts. Meant to try to get us to believe that nothing is being done or this group is getting something and we ain't getting nothing. Nobody talks about the HBCU bomb threat security grants. I was there at the White House covering that, but they want to talk about the response to the COVID-19 hate crimes. And so we got to get our shit together, because right now, I just don't understand. I do understand, but it really pisses me off the way that it's common knowledge in our community, all the shit that ain't got nothing to do with us, but none of the stuff that actually does impact us is any kind of common knowledge. So that's what we got to work on. And as it's been said many times, you have to wake up. At this point, your non-action is a reflection of your consciousness, not anybody else's. And I'm going to always encourage Democrats to step their game up, step their messaging up. But at the end of the day, what you choose to do in this moment is on you, and it's a reflection of you and you alone. Not anybody's messaging, not anybody holding your hand and making you excited. It's a message on you and what you can tolerate going forward in our society.
Great.
Right. That's right. Thank you, Reese. I'm gonna follow right along with you, sis. We are passionate with each other because of the trauma we've experienced together. And I think that's what's fueling the lineage stuff in California and the FBA, and all, it's all coming out of the trauma. We've been harmed. And so when we disagree with each other, it's very passionate. That's what's fueling some of this gun violence in places where it's black on black. We're next to each other and we're being harmed. So we harm ourselves. When you harm another black person, you harming yourself. That's that deep self-hatred expressing itself outward. And Roland, in your home state, brother, when you mentioned Texas a few minutes ago in terms of what we should do and how Beto is acting, and you evoked it. When you go to the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, those black people were up against the straight Klan in the white primary. There's a reason why those voting rights cases that come into the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the white primaries, Nixon versus Allwright, Nixon versus there's a reason why they came out of Texas. Why? Because black people still had the faint memory of the lash. And they bonded together and turned that pain into rage. And they organized and they broke the back of the white primaries. Those of you who say, well, the Republicans freed the slaves, go to hell. Y'all go read some history. Because those white nationalists left the Democratic Party as black people organized in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and they went into the Republican Party. This isn't about DNR, it's about power. And so, you know, when we see this young sister, we see Tatiana. I know it's one of the stories you didn't get to today, Roland, but there's a reason why Coco Gaunt just turned 18 years old, and Coco Gaunt wrote on the damn screen of the damn camera in Paris at the French Open, peace in gun violence. And she said, I just turned 18, and that child said, I now have the right to vote. And she said, my daddy told me, you can change the world with your tennis racket. She sound like Arthur Ashe, Roland, Reese, Larry. She sound like Arthur Ashe, and I got a little hope. Listen to her. But she also said, I'm in Europe, and the world is watching, and I understand that that's when you get things done. All you ADOS people talking about excluding black people, you don't understand the relationship between international movements and local movements. You wouldn't get a damn thing in the United States had it not been for the Cold War. But I'm going off on a tangent. I know these are closing remarks, so I'm going to end with this. Charles Booker comes in to the Senate from Kentucky, and Roland did the litany. You go, all those Democrats come, that's when you're probably going to find out that there's several of them hiding behind Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. But guess what? True. That's when you take the lesson from your ancestors, because your ancestors understood that. And remember, Roland, when you put that graphic up with what Reverend Barber said, he said there is no way to measure the power of inspiration. You turned out in 2008 because Obama was black. If somebody put a gun to your head and said, what are his policies? You wouldn't have been able to say, but he was black and you loved his wife. So you came out. Guess who else came out? Them white boys who've been plotting to kill you since the damn civil rights movement of the 60s in a slow march to control the courts. Go look at Samuel Alito the night we was covering the election, and Alito was prepared to throw all the votes in Pennsylvania out. Y'all ain't read the damn opinion. I read the opinion. He said sequester the votes in case we have to revisit this. If it could have been close enough for them to steal that night, they'd have stole it. But guess what they've been doing the last few years? They've been putting their judges in place. They've been getting their secretaries of state in place. And they getting ready to run a cold-ass Boston. You think we attacking each other now? Wait till the misery comes in the midterms. This ain't about DNR. This is about self-defense. Please understand that those African people in Texas who couldn't vote in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and went to court, and then who got the right to vote, and then who got out in the street and spilled blood and got that legislation pushed through Congress, because the world was looking at them, including a lot of people who look like us, and said, we ain't doing business with y'all, arguing to people at the United Nations. Guess what? They didn't look at the struggle in terms of an election cycle. Nat King Cole didn't distract them from, and the last time I looked, Jack Robinson was in the street too. In other words, Coco Gaunt is returning to a tradition. She's not starting one. Stop looking at this. Turn off Johnny Depp. Turn off Chris Rock. Turn off all that bullshit. Turn off Versus. Turn off all the... And remember that your ancestors did not struggle in 2-week increments, in 6-month increments, in one election cycle increments. They long-range future, and damn it, you done dropped the damn baton. And I'm saying that in love, because I know we argue with each other because we love each other and we are in pain. So now, if we don't have more pain, you better get your black ass out there and vote. He's caping for the Democrats. I'm caping for black people. Don't be so stupid, because when they lose, it's your black ass that's going to get shot. Just remember that.
I'm going to close it out with this, and it's picking up on what Greg just said, and we've been warning y'all about this. So don't act brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Vanity Fair has a piece that says, Steve Bannon's election takeover dream is starting to take shape. Recordings obtained by Politico suggest the GOP is embracing the precinct strategy promoted by the former Trump advisor and right-wing podcast host, a plan that could lead to chaos at the polls in November.
Yep.
I'm just going to read this. Embracing the precinct strategy promoted by Steve Bannon, the GOP is reportedly preparing to sow chaos in the 2022 election by creating an army of poll workers and Republican lawyers to challenge voters in Democratic precincts. According to recordings obtained by Politico, the Republican National Committee has been recruiting and training poll watchers to contest votes and building a network of party-friendly attorneys to help them. The operation has been cast by Republican officials as an effort to even out party imbalances among poll workers in urban centers like Detroit. That's you, black people.
Right.
But its true aims seem clear: to gum up the democratic process in Democratic areas and lay the foundation for results to be challenged in swing states like Michigan that were key to Joe Biden's victory in the 2020 election. Now, let me close with this. The black Republican former chief of the Detroit Police Department was the leading candidate to win the party's nomination when they have the primary. Yet today, the courts ruled that he cannot be on the ballot because of forged signatures. Isn't that interesting that a black Republican, former police chief for the city of Detroit, can now not run for governor of Michigan because of forged signatures on his petitions? I thought they were the party of law and order. Now, when I showed you that Politico story, that Vanity Fair piece, y'all did see precinct strategy. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, Reese, Larry. I'm sure y'all have heard me discuss on this show why we must return to basics and go back to galvanizing our people based upon precincts.
Many times. You talk about work the polls with your parents. Many times.
How many times have y'all heard me say we've got to be sure that the next generation of people are working the polls?
Yep.
So, ain't it interesting that Steve Bannon and his happy maggot cohorts are literally planning to use the very same thing black people use to elect Democrats to office, and they are going to use it against us? Let me just again remind everybody who's watching. January 6th, what was that day about? They were protesting the results from 4 states, not 4 states, from 4 cities. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, and Wisconsin. January 6th was because black people voted.
That's right.
So when Larry says anti-blackness is on the ballot, that's exactly what they are preparing for.
That's right.
I have been warning y'all since 2009 what was happening. Some of y'all, I must have been sleeping thinking that, oh, I'm just here, just joking, just saying this stuff for my health. There is a reason I chose this cover. Give me 1 second. There's a reason why I chose this cover for my book in September. I need y'all. Let me break down this cover. Trust me, y'all. I'm going somewhere. Let me break down this cover. So I need y'all to see the image. Now, y'all, this is the photo that I picked out with Ben Bella, and we're finalizing the book. It drops in September. You see the white man in the foreground. His head is back and his arms are open, and what he's saying is, this is ours.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is.
This is a white man's country.
What y'all see in here, you see U.S. flag, old U.S. flag, you see Trump flag. The Trump flag, see y'all.
Break it down, bro.
The Trump flag is higher than the U.S. flags.
That's right.
This day was because they were pissed that we voted. Because had we not voted in Georgia, Biden would not have won the state. Had we not turned out in Detroit, he doesn't win Michigan. Had we not voted the way we did in Philadelphia, he doesn't win Pennsylvania. Had we not voted the way we did in Milwaukee, he don't win Wisconsin. Y'all, that's what January 6th was all about. Now let me close this way. Now y'all see, because the rest of the book is actually called White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. That's the book. I'm trying to get y'all, and it drops in September, so I'm trying to get y'all to understand, for your simple Simons who keep saying, oh man, you try to get this, I mean, we ain't trying to do that, and we trying to get. Greg has said it. They are coming for us. Yeah. They are afraid of our growing power.
That's right.
They are angry that we have been using our power. Y'all need to understand the largest group in the Democratic House is the Congressional Black Caucus.
Yes.
And a lot of y'all saying they don't do this, they don't do that, but you ain't know what the hell they doing because you know who the hell represents you. But I am warning y'all today at 8:43 p.m. on June 2nd, 2022, that if y'all keep up these antics and y'all keep falling for the disinformation and you keep spreading the misinformation and you keep, and I'm not saying you don't hold anybody accountable, because if you heard what I said about Biden the last couple of days, today's speech was a part of that, but it should have gone harder than that. But I need y'all to understand something. What they have in store for us is something you in this generation has never seen.
That's right. Facts.
Your mom and daddy have. Your grandparents have. But you ain't never seen it. And in fact, I dare say what they have planned is far more sadistic than Jim Crow.
Yep.
Because they're going to do it with some people who look like us.
That's right.
And there are a number of modern-day Isaiah T. Montgomerys in the Republican Party.
Oh, yeah.
Senator Tim Scott is one of them. Vernon Jones is one of them. Oh, there are others. Clarence Thomas is one of them. But I am warning you, play games and find out, see what happens. And I know some of y'all saying, oh man, you're trying to scare us into voting for Democrats. No, what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to scare your ass to vote for your children's children.
Yes, sir.
Because you're voting for Tatiana. I'm voting for 9 nieces, 4 nephews.
That's right.
And so since some of y'all, oh, I need to be inspired. And we've shown you Buffalo, we've shown you Uvalde. We're going to end the show remembering 9 who can't vote. 9 who will not be at Essence Festival. 9 who will not be at the family reunions. If you need a reason to vote, if you need a reason to fight for gun safety, if you need a reason to fight, remember Emmanuel 9.
I'm not afraid.